Old Hollywood looked glamorous on the surface, but behind the bright lights was a much darker reality. Fame came fast, rules were loose, and some stars completely lost control. Violent tempers, reckless behavior, and dangerous addictions turned a few beloved icons into serious threats, both on and off the screen. Studios tried to hide these scandals, but the truth couldn't stay buried forever. In this video, we reveal the 10 most dangerous old Hollywood stars who completely lost control. Shocking stories that prove these legends were far more dangerous than anyone ever imagined. Number 1. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando wasn't simply an actor. He was a shockwave. When he appeared in A Streetcar Named Desire, Hollywood felt the ground shift. His rawness, his silences, his volcanic emotion rewrote what screen acting could be. But that fire was forged long before fame, in a childhood steeped in chaos. His father's violence and drinking, his mother's own struggle with alcohol, taught young Brando early that love and danger often lived side by side. That turbulence followed him into adulthood. His talent was undeniable, but so was his volatility. He moved through relationships restlessly, loved men and women, married and divorced with the same intensity he brought to his roles. At one point, he confessed he wasn't even sure who, or what, he truly was. Then came the tragedies that hollowed him out. His son Christian's involvement in a fatal shooting shattered the family, and years later, his daughter Cheyenne's suicide left wounds that never healed. Brando retreated, angry at the world and at himself, clashing with studios, rejecting authority, even refusing his Oscar for The Godfather. Yet beneath the defiance was conscience. In his later years, he turned his fame toward activism, most notably standing up for Native American rights by refusing Hollywood's praise. Number 2. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson looked like Hollywood's dream made real. Tall, handsome, effortlessly charming. Audiences saw confidence and romance, never imagining the loneliness behind the smile. Born Roy Scherer Jr. in a quiet Illinois town, his early years were shaped by an abusive stepfather who made him feel small and unwanted. Movies became his refuge, a place where life looked kinder than reality. Fame gave him everything except freedom. In an era when being gay could instantly destroy a career, Hudson was forced to live behind a carefully crafted illusion. Studios polished his image, staged romances, and even arranged a marriage meant to silence whispers. Every public appearance was a performance, and even in private he lived cautiously. Trust was rare. Love had to stay hidden. He once admitted that all he wanted was acceptance, yet he had to deny his true self to survive. In 1985, the truth surfaced most devastatingly. Hudson revealed he had AIDS, becoming one of the first major stars to put a human face on a disease wrapped in fear and stigma. The revelation shocked the world, cracked the illusion of the perfect leading man, and forced society to confront a reality it preferred to ignore. He died that same year, but his honesty changed history, proving that sometimes the bravest role comes at the end. Number 3. Clark Gable. Clark Gable wasn't just a movie star. He was the fantasy Hollywood sold to the world. Men wanted his confidence. Women fell for that famous grin, the mustache, the deep, steady voice that made every line sound unforgettable. On screen, he ruled. Off screen, the story was far more complicated. Long before fame, Gable grew up in rural Ohio, struggling to meet his father's expectations, He wasn't strong enough for farm life, and that quiet sense of falling short never fully left him. Even as success followed him through studio gates, insecurity walked beside it. Then came Loretta Young. Years after they filmed The Call of the Wild, a truth surfaced through her daughter. A secret pregnancy that could have destroyed two rising careers. The studio stepped in, erasing the scandal. Young disappeared, gave birth in silence, and later claimed the child as adopted. Hollywood had mastered the art of making problems vanish. Gable's private life was no cleaner. Affairs, rumors, and constant damage control kept publicists busy. As one insider said, the job was simple: keep reporters satisfied and law enforcement distant. To audiences, he was the perfect romantic hero. But when his wife, Carol Lombard, died in a plane crash, the illusion cracked. Grief changed him, and the man behind the legend began to fade into sorrow and drink. Number 4. Lana Turner. Lana Turner's life unfolded like a dramatic serial no one could look away from. Fame found her early. Discovered at 16 in a Hollywood drugstore, and MGM quickly turned her into the glamorous sweater girl. But behind the carefully polished image was a life marked by chaos, heartbreak, and survival. Her story was never simple. The roots of that turmoil stretched back to childhood. When Lana was just 9, her father was killed during a card game dispute, leaving her and her mother struggling to survive. That sudden violence shaped her understanding of love, drawing her again and again toward men who mirrored the instability she'd grown up with. Marriage after marriage promised safety, yet each one seemed more controlling, more destructive than the last. Her most dangerous relationship was with Johnny Stompanato, a volatile figure tied to organized crime. He was jealous, aggressive, and increasingly threatening, showing up on film sets and ruling her private life through fear. Leaving felt impossible. Pride, terror, and hope kept her trapped. Everything came to a head in 1958 when Turner's teenage daughter, Cheryl, witnessed Stompanato threatening her mother. Acting on instinct, she used a knife to stop him. The killing and trial that followed became a national spectacle. Though Cheryl was cleared, the damage to Turner's career and spirit was lasting. At its core, Lana Turner's story was a relentless search for the security she'd lost too young. She survived scandals, 8 marriages, and public judgment, passing away in 1995, a symbol of Hollywood's ability to create legends while leaving their wounds painfully exposed. Number 5. Judy Garland. Judy Garland began as a symbol of hope, the small girl whose voice promised that happiness waited somewhere beyond the clouds. Yet her own life never led her there. Born Frances Gumm in a quiet Minnesota town, she was pushed onto stages almost before she understood what childhood was. Her mother's hunger for applause became Judy's burden to carry. When MGM signed her at just 16, they didn't see a vulnerable teenager. They saw something to be controlled, shaped, and exploited. During The Wizard of Oz, her days stretched to exhaustion. Pills kept her awake, and more pills forced her to sleep. Meals were barely meals at all, and cigarettes were encouraged to keep her thin. It was cruelty disguised as discipline. Any sign of weight gain brought public humiliation. Any sign of weakness was met with more medication. By her early 20s, dependence had already taken hold. A habit the studio created, then abandoned her to survive. She tried repeatedly to escape it, but the damage ran too deep. Her personal life reflected that brokenness. 5 marriages, each filled with hope, each ending in pain. Those close to her believed she was chasing the love and safety she'd been denied as a child. On stage, though, she was transcendent. Her sorrow poured into every note, and audiences felt it. In 1969, at only 47, Judy Garland died alone in a London hotel from an accidental overdose. The girl who sang of rainbows never found her own calm skies, leaving behind a legacy that still echoes as a warning of what happens when talent is valued more than humanity. Number 6. Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy carried the image of stability, the kind of man audiences trusted without question. Calm eyes, quiet strength, a moral center that felt unshakable. But behind that composed exterior lived a man weighed down by lifelong sorrow. When his first son, John, was born deaf, Tracy absorbed the blame as his own. In an era filled with misunderstanding, he believed it was a punishment, and that belief never loosened its grip. His personal life existed in constant contradiction. A deeply religious Catholic, he refused to divorce his wife, yet he shared a profound, decades-long bond with Katharine Hepburn. To the world, they were merely colleagues and friends. In private, they were something far deeper, bound by love that could never fully exist in daylight. Tracy's pain fed an addiction that followed him everywhere. His drinking wasn't casual. It was consuming. He would vanish for days, return hollowed out, then step onto the set as if nothing had happened. Guilt over his son, fear of divine judgment, and self-loathing formed a cycle he couldn't escape. Those who worked with him described a man who could shift from warm and witty to cruel without warning. Studios tolerated the chaos because his talent was irreplaceable, and Hepburn often stood between him and collapse. But the weight of secrets and inner torment wore him down. Tracy died in 1967, just weeks after finishing his final film. He once said his demons never left him, yet out of that pain came something lasting: his wife Louise's devotion to helping deaf children through the John Tracy Clinic, a legacy of compassion born from heartbreak. Number 7. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman was the embodiment of Hollywood virtue. To American audiences, she wasn't just talented and radiant. She felt trustworthy. After films like Casablanca and The Bells of St. Mary's, she became the rare star people believed in, the Swedish actress who seemed untouched by scandal or ego. She represented purity in an industry built on illusion. Then, in 1950, that image shattered. Bergman traveled to Italy to work with director Roberto Rossellini on Stromboli. Both were married. Both had families waiting at home. But on that rugged island set, a genuine connection formed, and when Bergman became pregnant, the reaction in America was swift and merciless. The country felt betrayed. The outrage went far beyond gossip. Religious groups condemned her films, studios distanced themselves, and even a U.S. senator publicly labeled her a corrupting influence. Fan admiration turned into anger almost overnight. What shocked people most wasn't the affair itself. It was that Bergman refused to beg for forgiveness. She didn't retreat or pretend. She chose honesty, left Hollywood, and built a life and career in Europe alongside Rossellini. For years, she was shut out of American cinema, her reputation frozen in judgment. Yet the truth was simple. Ingrid Bergman had always been sincere, guided by emotion rather than calculation. When she returned in 1956 and won an Oscar for Anastasia, the standing ovation felt like a collective apology. Number 8. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney wasn't merely a child star. He was the definition of one, During the 1930s and 40s, his face dominated movie screens, especially through the wildly popular Andy Hardy films. By the time most kids were in school, Rooney was already a box office phenomenon, earning fortunes before he was old enough to understand money. Born Joe Yule Jr. to vaudeville parents, he grew up under stage lights, not in playgrounds, trading childhood for applause. Fame brought success, but it never brought peace. His adult life spun wildly. 8 marriages, public breakups, jealousy, and headlines that followed him relentlessly. Love slipped through his fingers as easily as money. Gambling drained his wealth again and again, and trust proved just as costly. His own mother controlled his finances, spending freely while he worked non-stop, leaving him nearly broke despite earning millions. As the years passed, betrayal replaced applause. Rooney later accused his stepson of exploitation and abuse, adding another layer of heartbreak to a life already stretched thin. On set, he was volatile, magnetic one moment, impossible the next. Directors braced for his mood swings, fueled by alcohol, exhaustion, and a lifetime of pressure. "I never had a childhood," Rooney once admitted, and he never stopped chasing what fame once gave him. Even into his 90s, he kept performing, talking, reaching for the spotlight, perhaps afraid that stepping away would force him to confront the life he never lived. Number 9. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow wasn't just Hollywood's first blonde sensation. She defined the image itself. That shimmering hair, the fearless confidence, the sharp wit, it all felt effortless on screen. But behind the glow was a young woman far more fragile than the roles she played. Born Harleen Carpenter in Kansas City, she was guided into stardom by an overbearing mother who saw opportunity long before Jean saw choice. Success came fast. By her early 20s, Harlow was a household name, yet her private life unraveled almost as quickly. Her first marriage brought violence and fear, pushing her toward alcohol as escape. The second ended in shocking tragedy when her husband was found dead only weeks after their wedding, leaving behind rumors that threatened to erase her career. Hollywood whispered, judged, and nearly turned its back on her. Searching for stability, she tried again, and failed again. Only her relationship with actor William Powell offered genuine warmth, but it came with limits and heartbreak, sending her deeper into loneliness. Beneath her bold public image, Harlow doubted her worth. She read obsessively, wrote poetry in private, and longed to be seen as more than a fantasy. Her life ended with cruel speed. In 1937, at just 26, she collapsed while filming Saratoga. Medical care was delayed, and kidney failure took her life. Jean Harlow died young, in pain, leaving behind a stunned industry and a legacy built on brilliance, vulnerability, and a fame that demanded everything and gave back far too little. Number 10. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was sold to the world as a dream. That cascading red hair, the unforgettable pose, the sultry power of Gilda. She became the image American soldiers pinned to their walls during World War II. Desire followed her everywhere. Yet behind the glow was a woman quietly aching for a kind of love she never seemed able to hold. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino, her childhood ended early. Her father, a Spanish dancer, trained her relentlessly and pushed her onto nightclub stages while she was still a child. Control blurred into something darker, teaching Rita far too young that her worth came from performance. At 18, she fled into marriage, only to exchange one dominating presence for another. Her husband reshaped her completely. New name, dyed hair, painful cosmetic changes, molding her into what Hollywood wanted. Fame arrived, but freedom never did. Studio boss Harry Cohn monitored her obsessively, treating her private life as studio property. Her later marriages, including those to Orson Welles and Prince Ali Khan, burned brightly and collapsed just as fast. Men fell for the image, not the woman, and her intelligence often unsettled those who expected submission. Privately, Rita was shy, unsure, painfully aware she could never compete with her own myth. "Men fall asleep with Gilda," she once said, "but they wake up with me." In her later years, Alzheimer's slowly stole her clarity, misread by Hollywood as weakness or addiction. She died in 1987, largely forgotten by the industry that once worshipped her. Today, her legacy stands as a haunting reminder of what happens when a woman is adored as a fantasy, but never truly loved as herself.